Hey everybody, this is Board Game Bob here with you again. Today I'm excited to teach you a game called Cascadia. Cascadia is a game that came out a couple months ago. I ordered it off of Kickstarter. They sent it to me and I'm pretty glad that they did. It's a pretty easy game to teach, a pretty easy game to understand. You don't need to be a hardcore gamer to play it, and it's a good game to help you, get people in your life into gaming. But also, if you do have hardcore gamers, they're going to like it too. So it's animal themed, which is nice, and there's some landscape things. So I guess I should probably tell you about it. It's pretty easy. So to start off with, each player is going to get one of these triple border tiles. The game comes with 5 of them. I always choose one randomly. And what this is telling you is this is the type of terrain. And so this particular tile has 2 different types of terrain. It has both mountains and it has water. This tile also has 2 different types of terrain. It has the, I guess the grasslands or savanna, and this other one. Probably should learn that. And then this just has a single type of terrain, which is the forests. The other 2 things to know about the tiles is the animals on them show the animals that could live on one of these tiles when you get an animal token. So this one could have hawks, bears, or moose, elk. This one could have fox or salmon, and this one can only have elk. And then the last other thing to note is you notice the up arrow there and the little pine cone symbol here. This means if and when I do put an elk onto this tile, I'm going to get a pine cone, which is going to let me do a couple of different things. So the game's quite easy. What you're going to do is you're going to have these randomly placed out assortment of terrain tiles and animal tokens, and there's always going to be 4 out there. And quite simply, I'm just going to take one combination. There's one way you could break up that pair, but in general, most of the time you're going to be taking a combination. So for instance, if I took these 2, I bring these into my area, and I need to, in a perfect world, I have to put this adjacent to, any of my sides, but in a perfect world, I'm going to put it next to that existing terrain type because that's going to score me more points. And then I'm going to take my fox and I'm going to put it on, in this case, I can either put it here or here. Those are the only 2 spots I could put a fox. So I'm going to put it here because since this is another one of those special tiles that lets me get a nature token, I now have a nature token. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to randomly refill. We're going to put another tile out, and then from the bag, we're going to grab another animal out. And now it's going to be my opponent's turn. My opponent also has a 3 terrain tile, a little bit different than mine. And they're going to go ahead and take this tile because they want to get a nature token as well. So when they take this token and the hawk, they're going to put this tile next to this one so that they extend their mountain range. And they're going to put their hawk on top of the hawk space, which is the one that gets them a pine cone. The game literally goes back and forth like this till each of us have taken 20 tiles, and then you're going to do scoring. The game includes a few different ways to do scoring. So it's got these different cards, and it includes 4 different types of scoring for each and every animal. The way you can tell the difference is they're marked down here with A. So they recommend for your first game that you start with all of these A tiles. So that's what I've got out here. So the bears are going to score. You want to have 2 bears together, mating pairs, that don't have any other bears around them. So if you have one pair of 2 bears with no other bears around them, that's going to get you 4 points at the end of the game. If you're able to do 2 pairs of bears with no other bears around them, that's going to get you 11, etc. The elk is pretty simple. If you have 1 elk, it's just going to be worth 2 points. If you have 2 that are next to each other, it's going to be worth 5. If you have 3 that are directly in a straight line, not next, 9, and 4 will be 13. The hawks, they want to be solitary. So it's kind of like the bears, except only one hawk instead of two bears. As long as they don't have any other hawks near them, they're going to score points. And again, it's going to escalate for the more solitary hawks you have are going to get you more points until eventually that could get you 26 points if you can get 8 hawks. The salmon, pretty thematically, want it to be a run of salmon. So, and the cards do a pretty good job at helping you understand how you want to configure these things. So the more salmon you have together in a run is going to score more points, but you can't have, like these 4 in a row here. That wouldn't be a run anymore. That'd just be a cluster, and that's not what the salmon want. And the fox wants to be nearby other animals. So this fox in the center is going to score 1 point for every adjacent animal next to it, including foxes. So in that scenario, that fox is going to score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because the second bear isn't going to count to score for that particular fox. So that's the first half of the scoring. The second half of the scoring is your terrain tiles. So at the end of the game, we're going to count up my biggest areas in each of the different terrains. So in this one, this marshlands, I think it is, I have 2 tiles together, and my opponent only has 1. So I'm going to get 2 points for having 2 tiles. My opponent's going to get 1 point, and I'm also going to get 2 bonus points for having the largest marshlands region. I'm going to get 1 point for my yellow tile, 1 point for my ocean or water, 1 point for my mountain, and 1 point for my forests. But obviously in a full game, I'd have more filled in. And then similarly, my opponent is going to get the 2 points for the 2 mountains, and they're going to get the bonus, and then everything else they're just going to get 1 point for. Really, the last 2 things to mention is if you take a tile and an animal and you don't have anywhere to put the animal would go away, so that wouldn't be good. So you always want to make sure you have somewhere in your tableau or on the new tile you're taking to put the animal. One of the things I can do with the pine cones, there's a few things I can do. So first of all, I could spend a pine cone to take a mismatched pair. So I could take this terrain tile and this elk if I wanted to. And that would be nice for me in this case because my elk could now get me a nature token right back. And this would extend my marshlands terrain to be 3 tokens long. So that's one way to use a pine cone. Another way to use a pine cone is I could spend a pine cone to wipe any number of animals. So let's say I really didn't like bears or elks, or I didn't have anywhere to put them. Get rid of them. Could bring out 4 new or random animals, and now I still have to choose the combination, the pair, unless I have another pine cone to spend to break those up. If there's ever 3 animals of a type together, the player has the option to clear those 3 animals and redraw. So I could get rid of these, redraw 3 new ones. And then if there were ever 4 of the same type to be there, then I would have to get rid of the animals and get 4 new ones. They call it overpopulation. And so the game would force me to get rid of all 4 of these salmon, and we would replace them with new tokens. And in this case, I'd have the option to replace the 3 hawks. So I think pretty much that's it. It's a really fun game. I haven't played it with anybody yet that has not enjoyed it. It's been very competitive each game. We end up very close. It comes with a nice score pad to make it really easy to count how many points you get for each of the animals, and then a sum of your animals, then how many points you get for each of the terrain types, and also to indicate the bonus if you're the one who had the most of the terrain types. And it's a pretty fun game. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. Please feel free to leave any questions and comments below, and I'll get back to them as soon as I can. Board Gaming Bob, out.